Moving on to the most recent news on Asian history, this time sourced from independent global research. The Sphinx, the pyramids, the Valley of the Kings, and the tomb of King Tutankhamen, the latter possibly the greatest archaeological find ever made because of the enormous amount of treasure uncovered by explorer Howard Carter, will all be familiar to the average person even with a passing interest in ancient Egypt. Naturally, Tutankhamun's tomb is well known around the world. The collection of precious artifacts has been shown in sell-out exhibitions, the most recent of which took place in Paris. However, another regal Egyptian treasure hoard has managed to stay out of the spotlight for unknown reasons. It was discovered near Tanis, which is northeast of Cairo in the Nile Delta. In many respects, it is actually even more remarkable than the boy king of the 18th dynasty. The magnificent artifacts, which go by the name Treasures of Tanis, were discovered in the late 1930s and early 1940s. Unlike Tutankhamun's tomb, one of the royal tombs in the excavated region was discovered to be completely intact. 4 solid gold death masks, 2 exquisite solid silver coffins lined with gold, and striking specimens of ancient Egyptian jewelry crafted from the most precious metals and stones are among the treasures found in this collection of priceless artifacts. I learned about this amazing discovery via an article authored by Egyptologist Bob Breer. Unquestionably, the treasures of Tanis are among the finest archaeological finds ever made, despite the fact that they have frequently gone unnoticed. Why then do we know so little in-depth information about them if they are so amazing? When the discovery was made at the start of World War II, the media worldwide was naturally preoccupied with other news that dominated the front page. Moreover, the results were only released in French, and the British and American media failed to report them amid all the other events taking place in the world. Even now, tourists to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo congregate around Tutankhamun's golden death mask and gaze in awe, not realizing that they have just passed a chamber containing undoubtedly much more amazing artifacts. All that can be hoped for is that they will have a prominent position in the opulent new Egyptian Museum set to open in 2020. Given that most people are aware that Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb, I believe we should give the man who uncovered the treasures of Tanis some airtime. It was the right discovery made at the wrong time. After 11 years of digs at Tanis, Pierre Montet, as he was known, finally found something special in 1939. On February 27, he discovered the tomb of a monarch who lived in the 22nd dynasty of Egypt, also referred to as the Third Intermediate Period of dynastic history. The monarch king, Askorson II, was identified by inscriptions as having governed at this time. There were other rooms inside the tomb, but regrettably they had all been looted and broken into. Having said that, there was still a magnificent pseudo-sarcophagus for Taklot II, his grandson and heir. Alabaster jars, hundreds of Ushabti figurines, and other burial artifacts were also present. It was a fantastic discovery on its face, but the international media would never report on it since Adolf Hitler was occupying Czechoslovakia. After clearing the tomb and surveying the surroundings, Montet came into a second tomb next to the maze he had already located. When he opened it, he found that it was fully unaltered, and it remains the only royal tomb from dynastic history to have been recovered in such immaculate condition to this day. A closed sarcophagus lay on the floor of King Sosink I's tomb. Egypt's King Farouk visited this location on March 21, 1939, to observe the opening. Inside was a stunning coffin made of solid silver adorned with the falcon head of Horus. Inside, the ancient king's body lay with a solid gold death mask still perched on its shoulders. The body was also covered in the most exquisite jewelry, such as pectorals and bracelets covered in jewels. There were also 4 canopic jars made of solid silver, but upon closer examination, inscriptions revealed that, while this was undoubtedly a tomb, the coffin within belonged to a monarch who had not yet been named, Shoshenq II. He ruled the 22nd dynasty and was considered a monarch of the Third Intermediate Period of dynastic history. It was discovered that he had died in his 50s from a septic head wound. However, history was altered at this precise instant by this finding. The evidence now showed that the kings of Tanis in the north were not as feeble as some had believed. but rather a powerful force whose wealth rivaled or even exceeded that of the monarchs in the south and any other Egyptian dynasty in history. It was originally thought that the southern rulers, who were headquartered at Thebes, possessed the true wealth and authority, and that the northern kings were little more than chiefs. This discovery had undoubtedly changed the course of history. Montet discovered 2 royal graves. One was looted, while the other appeared to be untouched. However, the inscriptions indicated that the second tomb belonged to Sosek I rather than Shoshank. And just where had he gone? Montet kept digging even as the Second World War was beginning, with Germany invading Poland and France and Britain declaring war. He found other apartments, but there was no sign of the vanished king. Then, on February 15, 1940, he came upon a passageway blocked by a single, massive granite plug formed from a piece of Ramses the Great's obelisk. After working at the rough stone block for 6 days, Montet finally glanced inside this one sealed compartment in a gesture that mimicked Howard Carter's opening of Tutankhamun's tomb. The sight before him was astounding. There were ushabtis, bowls, and cups made of gold and silver, and Sosek I's enormous pink granite sarcophagus, which was exquisitely adorned. The amazing solid silver inner coffin with gold inlay was discovered inside the outer and middle coffins of the sarcophagus when it was eventually pried open. When it was opened, the king's body was covered in jewelry as magnificent as Tutankhamun's, and his face was hidden behind the most magnificent solid gold death mask. Additionally, there were items made of lapis lazuli, which could only have been brought in from Afghanistan. This was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The initial purpose of the middle and outer coffins was for the pharaoh Mermeptah, the 19th dynasty's successor to Ramses the Great. These would have been taken during the Third Intermediate Period in the Valley of the Kings during what is now known to be the state-approved tomb robbing. The third pharaoh of the 21st dynasty, known by his Greek name Sosek I, ruled from Tanis from around 1047 to 1001 BC. The meaning of his name is the star appearing in the city, and the name of his throne, which is displayed here on the screen, means great are the manifestations of Ra, chosen by Amun. This pharaoh, who ruled for 50 years, passed away an old man with severely damaged teeth, several cavities, many of which were missing, and a physique severely debilitated by severe arthritis. He was the monarch who established Tanis as the official capital city of the north and was in charge of constructing the Great Temple of Tanis' center section as well as its surrounding fortifications. He accomplished this by transferring the ancient capital of Ramses, sometimes referred to as the House of Ramses, stone by stone to Tanis rather than by planning brand new construction projects. Literally speaking, Tanis' capital was once Ramses' capital, but it had relocated. This amazing accomplishment is akin to relocating Washington, D.C. to Baltimore. The monarch did this, but why? What was the purpose? Because due to the high amounts of silting at Ramses, the Nile River had relocated, leaving the city effectively high and dry. Thus, Sosek demolished a city instead of just a few structures, saving it and putting it back together in Tanis. It is also noteworthy that the theory that Ramses was Tanis was first put forth by Pierre Montet, the man who found the amazing tomb. Because King Sosek was not your typical monarch, he accomplished something genuinely remarkable during his lifetime. Being the high priest by right made him more than just a king, which could account for the enormous wealth his tomb in modern Egypt demonstrates. Both the pharaoh and the high priest received taxes starting in the New Kingdom. Sosek became the most powerful and affluent man in northern Egypt by combining both titles and thus both sources of income. His tomb is considered one of the most significant finds in history because it's the only known pharaonic grave to have survived efforts at theft. And while Khufu, Ramses the Great, Akhenaten, Hatshepsut, and Tutankhamen are frequently discussed, Sosek deserves to be included in this list as well, as he was a genuinely exceptional pharaoh with a tomb worthy of his life's accomplishments. One question still needs to be answered, though. Why were the coffins of 2 Third Intermediate Period monarchs constructed of solid silver, not gold? Why not? Gold was said to be the flesh of the gods because, like the gods themselves, it would not tarnish or corrode. But, well, silver was again more valuable than gold because its rarity in early dynastic history. However, trade connections had been made by the Third Intermediate Period, making silver more widely available. However, why did Psusennes choose silver for his coffin if he was wealthy enough to purchase gold, as we assume he was in his dual roles as high priest and pharaoh? Since silver is hotter than gold, shaping it is considerably more difficult. Therefore, it's possible that he was making a statement by using an estimated 90 kilograms of silver to create the coffin, a display of his money, power, and ability. Additionally, analysis has revealed that while some of the coffin's components were made of hammered sheets of silver so thin that they were partially broken during its removal from the tomb, the coffin's face was cast in a mold and hammered into shape. 4 gold death masks were eventually found at Tanis, but Pierre Montet's discoveries of 3 royal graves, 2 silver coffins, 2 solid gold death masks, and 1 fully preserved tomb will undoubtedly never be surpassed by any Egyptologist in the future. King Tutankhamun's belongings are undoubtedly worth more now, but not because of their actual gold content, but rather because of the pharaoh's renown. And that's only because the finding of his tomb became international front-page news. The treasures of Tanis would be traveling the globe now if Montet had made his findings a few years earlier. Pierre Montet would be considered archaeological royalty, and all children would be familiar with the titles of King Shoshenq II and King Psusennes I. Any visitor to Egypt should witness the treasures of Tanis, and we owe a debt of gratitude to Pierre Montet. He is credited with making one of the biggest archaeological finds in history, but regrettably, he was forced to return to France during the war to care for his family, so he was never able to complete his investigations. The man known as Montet, who first connected Tanis to P. Ramses and unearthed some of the greatest treasures from ancient Egypt, passed away in 1966. We ought to make sure that his legacy endures in light of all of this.